Matthew 10:33. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father, which is in heaven. There are several warnings Jesus Christ gave to us in the Scriptures. All of the warnings Jesus gave in the Scriptures are not to be heeded by believers. However, there are some of them that we do not take cognizance of. Instead, we forget them because we treat them lightly and see them as insignificant. Every words and especially warnings that Jesus gave must not be treated with levity, because Christ's warnings are not to be toyed with. Anyone who violates the warnings of Christ will only have him or herself to blame. Matthew 10:26 through 33. Therefore, do not fear them, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. Whatever I tell you in the dark, speak in the light. And what you hear in the ear, preach on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. But rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin? And not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows. Therefore, whoever confesses me before men, him will I also confess before my Father, who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, him I will also deny before my Father, who is in heaven. In Matthew 10:26 through 33, Jesus was teaching on the subject of fear, and he told the people who they are to fear. We are to fear God, not man. Man can destroy the body, but not the soul. But God can take a man's life and still cast his soul into hell. The reason Jesus brought up the issue of fear before giving us this warning, which is almost forgotten in this modern era, is that we often fear man at the expense of God. This may be due to the fact that God is not palpable, and because he is not seen by the naked eye, we tend to undermine his terror. In order not to become victims of God's terror, Jesus warns us before the day of judgment that whosoever fear man at the expense of God will incur his wrath. What makes people deny Christ before men is not exclusive to fear. Although there are several human factors that could make a believer to deny Christ before men. However, fear of persecution is a major factor. Apart from the issue of fear, there are many ways we deny Christ in our generation, even when we are not under the pressures of persecution. Denying Christ is rampant among believers in this generation. Some believers cannot witness Christ to others, not because they will be persecuted, but because they are ashamed of associating with Christ. Some believers would choose not to preach the gospel because they feel they will be mocked. In this manner, we become disobedient to God in regards of the Great Commission while denying Christ. Our lifestyle largely determines whether we are denying Christ or not. Believers are not supposed to be living for themselves, but for Christ. Remember that we were bought with a price. And if we were bought, it then implies that we do not belong to ourselves. Like Apostle Paul, our testimony must be that it is no longer us that live, but Christ living in us. Galatians 2:22 says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Therefore, if at any point we choose to live for ourselves and refuse to showcase the very life of Christ, then we have denied him before men. Our lives do not belong to us, but to Christ. Hence we must live for him. Christ expects us to deny ourselves instead of him. He purchased us with his precious blood. Therefore, we no longer have the liberty to live a selfish life, but a life that is Christ-centered. Hear what Jesus said in Luke 9:23. And he said to them all, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. We don't have any other place to go other than where Christ leads us. And we have no life to live other than to live for Christ. If our lives are not reflecting the will of Christ, we have denied him. Let others see Jesus in you and allow your life to reflect Christ. Unbelievers do not read the Bible. They read our lives. Unfortunately, many people go to church, but there is nothing Christ-like about their lives. Christianity is not a religion. Rather, it is a lifestyle. Acts 11:26 says this about the early Christians. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. The early Christians were not the ones who named themselves Christians. It was the people in Antioch that called them Christians. What makes you a Christian is not the point that you go to church, but the fact that your words and actions are Christ-like. The word Christian means little Christ. Our lives must therefore revolve around Christ. Jesus commanded us in Matthew 5:16, thus, Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. When our lives reflect Christ, God will be glorified by people through us. But when we profess to be Christians and our lifestyles are not in consonance with our professions, the people of the world will have occasion to speak against God through us. There must be something about your life as a believer that will impress unbelievers and attract them to Christ. If your lifestyle is not different from the lifestyles of unbelievers, then by what means will you prove that you are saved? Will the people in your neighborhood or workplace attest to the fact that you are a child of God? Do you just bear a Christian name, but do not reflect the life of Christ? You do not only deny Christ when you refuse to talk about him before men, you also deny him when your life is not in agreement with the standard of God for believers. James 4:4 says, "Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God." You cannot embrace the world and embrace Christ at the same time. If you embrace the way of the world, you have automatically denied Christ. Jesus said that there is no one that can serve two masters. You can never please Christ and please the world. One must go for the other to remain. As believers, we must heed the warning of Christ and ensure not to deny him here on the earth. The consequence of denying Christ on earth is that he will in turn deny us, not only before men, but before God and his angels. Philippians 2:13 through 16. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless children of God, without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain.